were who we thought they were. Then they weren't. And then we let them off the hook. But then we did what we like to call in the business a little catch and release. And we ended up winning that game. I guess I got confused on my notes I jotted down. I thought we won 27-24, but it was 30-27 because I'm sure the purveyor of positivity knows the score better than I do. And the Vikings win. And it is a lovely day, though, again, there are complaints. How can this be a lovely day when we let the Bears off the hook? There's more negativity. I've suddenly turned into purveyor of positivity 2.0. I texted last night or tweeted after the game. I said, this is what really good teams do and really bad teams do. Really bad teams take sacks in overtime and punt the ball back. Really good teams drive down the field and win the game. And then I had people, I'm looking at some of the responses. We never should have let the Bears be in this game like this. This is a terrible team. We're never going to go anywhere. We want to get to the big game, and we're not getting there. There's people in the building that they actually have a frown on their face today. They would think it's a rainy day and a Monday. It's like they're 9-2, and we're, it's the.
I don't think the Bears are a terrible team either.
No, and it's the National Football League. On any given Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want all the cliches? It's a nice win. Now, I got to admit, it would have been a little disconcerting had the Bears drove down the field and scored a tutty there.
Sure.
Overtime and won. Yeah, then there would be at least some reason to complain. Though, guess what? We'd be 8-3, still locked into a playoff spot. But it was, and we will discuss it today in depth. There is no question about it. We will. Well, there were some highs and lows, and there were some bad lows. I mean, there were some. They allowed the Bears to make some big plays, some splash plays. That's what I think you get though with a B-flow defense, right? Because what did Mike Tice once say about blitzing? You live by the dog and you die by the dog, right? And there are times where if you're
live by the dog, you die by the dog.
If you're sending. Do people use the word gobs anymore? When we were kids, it was like, there's just gobs of them. When you're sending gobs of players, there are times where they're going to get a quick hitter on you, and oftentimes it's going to go for big yardage, and that'll happen. But there were certainly some highs and lows in the game, and special teams where, Johnny Munt has got to get out of the way of that. But the biggest play of the game, I thought, was the Bears punt returner not getting out of the way because the Bears were going to get the ball back. I think at that point was it a 3-point game? And then it bounces off his leg. Vikings recover, I think, at the 15, and then they punch it in, go up 10 or 14, whatever it was. They going up 10 at that point. And that was basically your ball game. The Bears just didn't have enough, though. At the very end, they get the quick strike, they go for the 2-point conversion, and then at that point, I think I read 2-point onside.
It was 17-10 at the time that happened. Yep,
and then it went to 24-10.
24-10.
Yeah, and so that at that point, At that point, I would generally turn off the television and go about my fall cleanup. But because I'd already completed my fall cleanup, I decided to watch it to the bitter end. And I was as surprised as anybody because I thought for sure, my lovely wife Potato was putzing around the house, and she kept asking about the game. And this game's over. There's no chance the Bears are going to come back and get back into it. And yet they did. They sent it to overtime. And I think 0 for 9 onside kicks this year until yesterday. Now onside kicks, unless another one was kicked yesterday after that, like last night. And I don't think there was because I think Philadelphia ran roughshod.
They routed them.
Yeah. I think it's now 1 for 10 on onside kicks. They just don't happen anymore. When back in the day when the players on the kicking team could run full speed side by side with the place kicker, kick the ball and it's bouncing around and everybody's running at full speed. I don't know until that rule change. I'd like to see if they have an all-time number for onside kicks attempted. In pro football, somebody's got it somewhere, right? Let's say there was 8,432 onside kicks from the beginning of football until they changed the rule, and how many were successful. They
also had to have changed the tee rule, right? Like none of them kick off the tee anymore.
That could be a rule change. I don't know. You're right. Because it
seems like you'd want to use the tee if you could.
But he had it sitting there squibbed, and the kick wasn't anything special. It was just Johnny Munt was blocking a little further down the field than he probably should have, and that's GOAT status there. I'm not talking greatest of all time. He's going to wear goat horns if the Bears
He had a false start on our overtime possession too.
Yeah, when they won the Bears won the toss. I have to admit, I thought we were going to lose the game. That was the first time I thought we were going to lose the game. So I thought, well, this is set up. This is what happens to the Vikings.
They got momentum on their side.
Yeah, they got momentum, and this is, if you believe in karma, if you believe in bad luck, if you believe in it always happens to my team, why do bad things?
If you have Avatar syndrome,
if you have Avatar, aggravated Vikings, what is it again? Aggravated Vikings,
anticipatory traumatic abandonment
syndrome.
Reaction, yeah.
You feel that it's always going to go against you, and I thought it was. I thought the Bears were going to just take it right down the field and score a tutty. But, that's where the defense, that was a big 3-and-out. And I know Sammy got sacked on our first possession in overtime as well. The one by Williams, you got to get rid of that ball. And he must have been standing back there for 10 or 12 seconds. It's like, dude, you got to throw the ball, and he didn't. And then we capitalized where Sammy Darnold, after the sack, was really good. A lot of that has to do with, the Bears. It seemed like they were doing some weird umbrella coverage for a lot of the game, and they just had no answer for the Vikings in that overtime drive. That entire fourth quarter and overtime, Darnold was really good.
Yes.
So we'll break it all down. We'll come back. Let's pause. When we return, more controversial Vikings news on the Common Man program on the Fan.
Fan.
Don't miss out on the Power Trip Morning Show when they take over Treasure Island on February 6th and 7th. Be there for tons of games, laughs, and great prizes, including Vegas trips to watch the big game. Bookers stay using promo code KFAN for both the 6th and the 7th to save 15%. To get the full details and book your stay today, head over to KFAN.com. Keep your calendar.
I know that SNL's had a longer run, but if you're going to compare joke for joke, bit for bit, laugh for laugh, Power Trip or SNL, you pick.
Well, not even close.
Yeah. Nice. Hockey, sauce.
The cast size is about the same in terms of the amount of people participating on the shows, but...
Hold on. Think of all the different, what do they call it when you have a cast of characters? The ensemble. They have a different ensemble all the time. It started with Belushi, Aykroyd, Curtin, Chevy Chase, etc. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I think Garrett Morris, several others. And then, they've changed. And so they get, fresh new people in it. It's been the Power Trip with those three guys and their cast of characters day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year.
Decade after decade.
Yeah, just thinking about it makes me laugh. Our Peek at the Purple is brought to you by Affordable Electric. They're your old house specialist. If you've gone EV with your car, truck, or SUV, let family-owned Affordable Electric get you powered up by installing a Level 2 EV charging system. Affordable Electric, they're shockingly affordable. Go to affordable-electric.com today. You look at the overtime and just starkly different from what the two teams did. I'm looking at the game summary, Teneby. Bears get the kickoff 1st and 10 at their own 30. We flush Caleb Williams out of the pocket. He gets 1 yard. It's 2nd and 9 for the Bears. Next, 2nd and 9 from the 31st. Williams sacked by Grenard at the Chicago 19. They lose 12 yards. I think that was the longest play time-wise from the time the stopwatch started till the time it ended. He's standing back there, and I want the Vikings to win the football game, but I'm still screaming at the court because I do it for the other team. I'm going, you got to throw it, dude. What are you doing? And he doesn't throw it, and he gets sacked.
I think we'd call that one a coverage sack.
That's a coverage sack.
And even on the replay when they showed it, Grenard was being double teamed, and they probably could have been a penalty.
Correct.
They were both holding him. They were both holding him.
Well, they were holding
nearest.
every play. I texted that, and people got mad at me saying they said, did PA somehow hack into your Twitter? Because I tweeted once during the game, the Bears are holding all the time. Yeah. They were holding every single play. So now it's 3rd and 21, and then Chicago gets a penalty. They get a delay of game, 5 yards. And so now it's 3rd and 26, and of course they just throw the short pass, and it's complete, but they get nothing. About 10 yards, and they have to punt the ball back. Then look at the Vikings. Now, the first play, Darnold sacked at the Minnesota 20.
Not a good start.
They're 1st and 10 at the 21. He gets sacked for a 7-yard loss. But then after that, Darnold to Hockenfuss for 7. It's now 3rd and 10 because that was 2nd and 17 after the sack. They get 7 yards. Now it's 3rd and 10. Darnold hits Addison to the Minnesota 34 for 13 yards. Clutch play there. I mean, when you're looking at 3rd down and 10, odds are in favor of the defense, generally speaking.
I would say that was a cold-blooded connection.
That was...
is what I would say.
I like that. I like that a lot. PA should start using it. Cold-blooded connection. Then the Vikings get a penalty. You mentioned Johnny Munt gets called for a false start. 1st and 15 from the Minnesota 29. And then Darnold hits Jefferson. Only a second catch of the game. And we'll get into that as well. It's well documented that if you remember earlier in the week, somebody asked Justin Jefferson, how would you guard Justin Jefferson? What would you do? And he said, well, you kind of pick your poison. You either cover everybody and I'm going to beat you. This isn't exactly how he said it, or you go ahead and double up on me and then you're just going to leave other people open. It's one or the other, and that's exactly what happened. The Bears, again, decided what other teams have decided as well. And who was the first to really do it effectively? Was that 3 games ago? Was that Tennessee or Carolina that said the 4 field goal game?
Jacksonville.
The Jacksonville. Where they just said, well, we're not going to let you beat us. You can go anywhere else you want, but we are not going to let Justin Jefferson beat us, and was very effective. And I think other teams have kind of decided that you'll pick your poison.
Yep.
And that's what they've decided to do. But Jefferson gets it. 20 yards. They get to the Minnesota 49. Then there's a penalty against the Vikings. Holding on Brandel. Is it Brandel or Brandel?
Blake Brandel.
Blake Brandel gets a holding penalty. But then on 1st and 20, Darnold to Jones for 9 yards. 2nd and 11 for Minnesota. 12 yards to Hawkinson. It's now 1st and 10. Jones goes off left guard for 2. And then Darnold hits Hawkinson with a big pass. That was the best. That was a critical play, and Hawkinson got open. It's they get to the Chicago 9 for 29 yards. Then Darnold just goes ahead and moves the ball over more toward the mid between the hash marks to get it exactly where the greatest kicker in Vikings history, John Parker Romo, wants the ball, and 29-yard field goal. Boom, ball game, and that was it. And that's what a good team does. When look, again, is that how you draw it up? No, you don't draw it up where you give up a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, an onside kick, and a field goal when you got the game wrapped up. You're up 11 points. And you let the other team score 11 points in a 29-second span. There was 29 seconds to go when the Bears scored a touchdown. No, it was 22. It was 29 seconds and then it was 22 after they scored the touchdown. Then they got the 2-point conversion. The clock stayed at 22. Then the onside kick bounces off Munt. They get it. They throw a strike down the field. Next thing you know, they're right there in field goal range, and they tied they tied the game up. And when you talk about momentum, I do believe in momentum, especially in football. You would think the Bears would have been all fired up and said, "I can't believe this. Now let's go get them. We win the toss. Let's go." And it was just the opposite. The Vikings defense said, "Not going to work." They drew a line in the sand. They stopped the Bears on a 3-and-out and got the ball back, and that's a nice win.
Well, we talked about multiple times early in the season, right, when the Vikings had let some of those teams back in, like San Francisco and Green Bay, but when the offense needed a series to score, Darnold was leading them down the field.
Yeah.
And not only did he do it in overtime, he did it in the middle of the fourth quarter because Chicago had made it 24-16.
Correct.
And the Vikings went down the field and got into field goal range to make it a 2-score game.
Yes.
So 2 clutch drives, and I know there was a lot more running on that drive than the overtime drive was all Darnold, but he. And the previous one too, that was the one he got hurt. So yes. Mullins came in, made the throw for it, but then Darnold came back with half a left foot and was still making throws out there.
I've always judged a quarterback by, you can talk about your QB ratings, you can talk about your completion percentages, your touchdown to interception ratio, and those are all important statistics. But Tenneby, you've heard me say this once, you've heard me say 13, 14, 100 times. Give me a game in which, like yesterday, now they weren't behind, but you're in overtime, a chance to win the ball game, and your quarterback makes big throws. Now, he had some guys open. Again, the Bears decided, seemed like they still wanted to stop Jefferson, but Hawkinson Addison has a career game, 162 yards. Hawkinson has 114. And they drove down the field, and again, that's the second week in a row now that Sam, maybe he's learned his lesson, to be no turnovers the last 2 games. Now, Jones turned one over early, but it went well, and the Vikings they started running the ball again. I think Jones went over 100 yards, 104 yards. And did I see some weird stat, like, is that the first rushing touchdown for the Vikings in a second half under KOC in ages or ever? There was some weird...
they didn't have a whole lot last year, I know that.
Yeah, there was some weird stat like that, but they win, they're stalking the Kitties. We'll break, come back, more Vikings talk. Want to talk Gophers, too. Tenneby, they had the Nittany Lions on the ropes. Kirill Kaprizov injured, but we don't think it's serious. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves decide, you know what, let's have a little talk and try to talk this thing over, and let's get back on the winning track. And they lose to defending NBA champs by a couple of points on the road. We'll get to all of those topics and more. You're in the Common Man program with Tenneby and Common on the Fan. Joe Biden. Oh, he's gone. He did his concert already. So who's next? Arlo Guthrie in Alice's Restaurant.
Hey, join the KFAN Power Trip Morning Show live on Black Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. at the Huntington Bank Rotunda at Mall of America. They'll be playing the Initials game live for multiple grand prizes, including a trip and ticket bundle to see your favorite teams on the road, plus the ultimate Minnesota Sports Day on Black Friday. Get the full details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Why wouldn't somebody from the sales staff try to send password Black Friday?
Yeah, we'd do it.
Be nice. It's kind of a popular thing. I know nothing compares to the Power Trip and the Initials game, but I think we got a pretty good following. We get some pretty good streaming numbers, right, on the platforms. Do we not?
Yes, very good, yeah.
I mean, close circuit to the sales staff. I love each and every one of you, but there's more to the radio station than the Power Trip Morning Show. There really is. I know that's where, and I get it. That's where their bread is buttered. I get it. The advertisers are knocking down the door, but Tenneby and I have a really good track record. Trust me. We've produced for a lot of clients over the years, and we'll continue to do that. We're
at a high level for a really long time.
Yeah, I know we're this just cute little show, but I think we're doing pretty well. And by the way, I get it. Okay, I'm going to throw some media person under the bus. Apparently, I've been told that 2 other teams have successfully converted an onside kick this year? Dallas and Tampa Bay. Okay, I don't know. All I know is what I read this morning in my exhaustive research. It said the Vikings were the first this season. It was 0-9 going into the game, so don't blame me. I'm sorry.
Well, my fault for not correcting you because I watched the Dallas one.
Okay.
Yeah, that was against Baltimore.
And when did that happen? Weeks ago, or not this weekend?
No,
right?
it was probably 4 or 5, 6 weeks ago. Yeah, it was at Dallas.
Okay. I apologize.
And Baltimore was up like 3 scores in that game, and Dallas roared back to get it close.
2 text messages that have come in. And by the way, there are a number of ways to get a hold of us. You can call us. We generally don't answer the phone, but we might. 1-800-320-5326. Emails. Booth at KFAN.com. Also, the talkback, and I'll look into that, Tenneby. I now can control it from here inside the studio. You're busy enough in there. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go ahead and check some talkbacks maybe during not during the next break, because I got to get my lunch ready. But we'll take a look at the talkbacks. That's easy to do. You go to the iHeartRadio app, you search stations, and then you find the fan, find the a microphone icon in the corner of the screen, tap it. You got 30 seconds or less to delivers an audio message. And then there's the Brad, Sean, Bryant, KFAN text line, 64686. And there are a couple that I would like to address right here before we talk more about the Vikings game specifically, or at least the situation that the Vikings are in right now. This one says, hey, comment, after seeing Caleb Williams play yesterday and never seen J.J. McCarthy play a regular season game, if you were the GM of the Vikings and the Bears GM called you today and said, we will trade you even up for Caleb Williams for J.J. McCarthy, would you do it? I don't think that call is coming from the Bears, but I think I would probably take the trade. I would take Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams, again,
it's hard to know because we don't know what
right.
J.J. McCarthy looks like.
So remember, McCarthy's won at every level. He's won high school championships. He's won a national championship. He won a natty last year. So kid's got a lot of talent. There is no doubt about that. There was only one quarterback in the draft that was, and the experts aren't always right, but there was only one that was considered a generational talent, and that was Caleb Williams. So I think I would take
And he had some generational moments yesterday,
yes, he did.
right? I mean, the one where he got 0 blocking, got pushed off to the right, and makes that throw to DeAndre Swift. Now, some of those are going to be picked off every once in a while. I'm surprised he hasn't had more interceptions, especially recently, because he has some throws that were, the Vikings had multiple times were like an inch or two away from tapping passes and knocking him down, but Williams can make some big time throws, and he's very athletic.
Well, and it seemed like some of his best throws were on the run. There were times where he had time.
He's better on the run.
It seems like it, because there were times where he was on the run and he threw dimes, and then there were times he had all the time in the world, and he made poor decisions or poor throws. Then there's this one that says, I know Romo made the field goal, but you don't kneel on the ball until it's 4th down in OT to burn the clock in case Romo misses the field goal, so they don't have time to answer back. If you do that, it's either a win or a tie and not a loss. Just a thought. I don't know about that. 35 seconds isn't going to make that big of a difference. Plus, I always like, and this is another old school football thing you hear him talk about all the time. If you try to kick the field goal on 3rd down and there's a bad snap,
yes,
you can jump on the ball, recover it, and then you get another opportunity to do it. If it's 4th down, it's over. So I would rather do that. I don't think,
And every kneel down you do, you're losing yards.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they lost 2 yards in the first one, and not that, a 33-yard field goal is that much harder than a 29 field goal. But to your point, if you have now a bad snap and you do another play later.
That's exactly why you do it on 3rd down.
Just get the game over. Just kick your 29-yarder and win the game.
I'm not oblivious to why Viking fans would be a little not thrilled. I mean, you like the win. A win's a win, right? That old cliche about winning ugly rather, than losing pretty. But I get it. I mean, you go to Chicago, you're kind of waiting for a real statement game where you go to Chicago, they're not like you said, they're not a bad team, but they find unusual and creative ways to lose games. That's their 5th loss in a row now. They were 4-2 at one time. They lost 4 in a row. And we know they had the Hail Mary pass. They lost to a blocked field goal. I think there's been some other things that have been unfortunate for the Bears. And I understand as a Viking fan, you'd rather have gone to Soldier and just dominated that game. Especially if the touchdown, if the tutty, the 2-point conversion, and the onside kick field goal doesn't happen, you probably feel better about the win because it's a cliche, but it seems to be true. It's always ugly in Chicago. It just is. It's just for not just for the Vikings, but for a lot of teams. And then when you look at the teams that are basically your peers as far as playoff, as we look at the other teams right now, it appears it's going to be either Tampa or Atlanta, right?
Yep, in the South.
Then it's the Commanders have now. Have they lost a couple in a row? And did they lose to Dallas? I mean, That's a bad loss, So, but the Commanders are still in the mix. But then I think the teams that you look at and go, well, this is the cream of the crop of the division of the conference. Detroit, who won again yesterday, they beat the Colts, and they didn't do it the way they've been beating teams. They didn't run up, 50, 60 points. They won comfortably 24-6. They didn't give up a tutty again. That's 10 quarters in a row, that defense.
That's unbelievable.
And that defense coming into the season was...
Without Aiden Hutchinson.
Exactly. And without Anzalone, who was their second leading tackler. He was out as well. They lost more people due to injury yesterday, too, Tennessee. The injury bug, it hits all teams, but it's starting to hit Detroit now. Demo was out. Now, he could have come back in. They think he'll be ready for Thanksgiving. Decker got hurt again. It seems like every Detroit lineman's got some body part about to fall off, but Decker did come back and play. Then I think they took him back out again. And then who else got hurt yesterday? Their kick returner and Khalif Raymond, who was a great punt returner. And he's a good wide, he's a good fourth wide receiver for him. He got hurt, and that one looks to be the most serious. And then they also lost one of their defensive backs. The hell's his name? They lost a D-back. So the injuries are starting to get to them. But you look at Detroit winning basically comfortably every week with a high-powered offense and a much better defense than I think people expected. Philadelphia, I mean, what are they, 9-2 as well now?
They've won 7 in a row.
They've won 7 in a row, and they just destroyed a pretty good Rams team. What was the final score there? Because I stopped watching.
It was like 37-20, something like that.
So they beat a fairly decent Rams team that was still in the mix and beat them on the road. And then Green Bay, I know San Francisco is down. I get it. San Francisco, they're without Purdy. They had no chance, right? Ayuk's out another. But they just destroyed them, Green Bay. So when you look at the way those teams won games, you're kind of like, boy, we had to struggle to beat the Bears. So I understand the fear and the loathing or the disappointment, but...
Well, you know what, though? And not to pull a Rosie and just point out some other team.
Right.
But the Green Bay Packers, everyone else considers a top team in the NFC, one game behind the Vikings, they also struggled to beat the Bears. They had to block a kick as time expired.
Correct.
I think people are assuming the Bears are awful, and I'm not going to say they're good, but that's not a terrible pushover team. Caleb Williams made some big throws yesterday. They've got a pretty good wide receiver trio. Their defense has been good all season. That's not a bad team. Yeah. And you had to go beat them on the road.
Yeah.
And I get the manner in which you gave up, right? When you give up the touchdown drive and then the onside kick. So that's what rubs people the wrong way. But they're an okay team.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, okay teams are not it's not a gimme victory over those teams.
The Munt having the ball bounce off his leg obviously was that's not good, right? Because it allowed the Bears to send it to overtime. But I still think the bigger blunder was the Bears punt return guy. And he knew he was, I still don't understand what the hell he was doing. He was kind of signaling, I'm not going to catch the ball, but he kind of just stands there. It's like, dude, you got to run into the end zone. You're supposed to go as far away from that football as you can because, as we all know, that oblong pigskin can take wacky bounces, and it bounced right off him. That gave the Vikings a 15-yard field and allowed them to go up. What was at that point? Did they go up by 14?
They gave him a 2-touchdown lead.
Yeah, they gave him a 2-touchdown.
His signal was everybody else get out of the way, but he didn't get out of the way.
He didn't get out of the way.
He didn't listen to his own signal.
And again, who knows what happens there? The Bears could have went 3 and out. The Vikings could have stripped sack, could have been intercepted. But
prime field position too.
Prime field position, and gave the Vikings, and that gave the Vikings enough of a cushion there, at least until what happened.
And we finally ran the ball in without fumbling.
Yeah, we did. We finally did. Somebody did send me, and I'm gonna say this is accurate. Let me find it on my text message. I think it was. I can't find it again now, but it had to do with the Vikings scoring a touchdown on the ground. I think it said, oh, here it is. First rushing touchdown by a running back in the second half in 27 games. And then this text messenger says, more evidence that KOC likes to get a little too cute by the goal line. And maybe sometimes guys do, or maybe you know the strength and weakness of your team too, and the opposition that you're playing. It's not like our offense is this bulldozing. They don't remind you of the Philadelphia offensive line or the Detroit offensive line. They don't, me anyways. I mean, I think we have a good offensive line, but I don't know if we're built to just, run the ball and gash teams for big yardage. So, but I think the coach, he had the quote. We highlighted it last week where he said part of what he has been doing is, he said, kind of checking the ego, in the film room. Instead of always trying to show everybody, look at how tricky I am. Look at the ingenuity I have. Because Andy Reid does it all the time. It seems like Andy Reid has got a new play every week. There's something new he's concocted in his laboratory. The one the other week that we talked about when he did the one where the first play of the game, where Mahomes spun around 360 3 different ways. He faked it to 3 different people, and I don't even know who ended up getting the ball. It was like a magician, like a sleight of hand kind of thing. Now you see it in like a shell game. Now you see it, now you don't. And I think coaches do. KOC kind of admitted sometimes you kind of want to show, look what kind of play I can come up with. Now, that being said, I read that the pass that Mullins threw, was that a third down pass too?
Yes, it was 3rd and 13.
Yeah, the pass he threw was a play the Vikings had not used all year. That was a play, and I don't know if they said they just drew it up this past week. But it was a play where, and it worked to perfection. That was Jones, right?
Yes.
He was wide open. There wasn't anybody even close to him. And I don't know exactly how they designed the play. But you got to give it to the head coach there, because you're going to call a play, if you believe what I read, and I'm going to go with it, that was a play they'd never done before. And you call it on a 3rd and, what was it, 7, did you say? Or
I think 3rd and 13.
3rd and 13. With your backup quarterback just trotting out.
Ice cold.
Yeah. Now, it was a simple throw because he was wide open.
Yes.
He was just wide open. But still, to call that play then and have that play up your sleeve for that moment, you couldn't have drew that up any better. So,
well, we were talking just last segment about Sam Darnold stepping up on all these clutch drives at the end of games. KOC's calling great plays, right?
Yes,
a lot of those plays, it seems like receivers are open. He's scheming for them to get open. So he deserves credit in those situations too. I don't know if he intentionally saves his best plays for when he needs them the most or what, but.
Okay, Versic. You're sounding like Versic and I'm sounding like PA. No, I'm not as down on the team as a lot of other people are, especially when
they're 9-2.
Well, and again,
doesn't mean they're perfect.
And I'm the first to say that, going into the season, I thought if they won, I said, I think they could go 9-8, but don't count on it. That's kind of what I was predicting.
I thought 9 was their high.
Yes, exactly.
That was their ceiling.
The experts and the odds makers were all, what was the over-under, 6.5? I think it was 6.5 was the over-under. Now, I know, and I think you agree with me on this, I think. When you start the season with low expectations, but then you exceed those and exceed them by a lot, well, then my expectations do start to change then, too. It's not like I keep going, this team was only supposed to win 6 games. How about that? Once they start winning football games and get a better record, like with the Wild. Same thing with the Wild. They were expected to be meh, right? At best,
yes.
Maybe the 500 club would have been a victory, I think. Well, now my expectations are, I'm not, if all of a sudden they start losing games, I'm not going to go, well, this is what they were kind of expected to be. It's, well, no, you've exceeded those expectations. You've been doing something right. Something has gone your way. You've either coached them up. The players are just playing better. A combination of the two. Maybe some of it's your competition. I don't know. But so the expectations for the purple. So I'm certainly not saying like I'm just like pinching myself and just going, it's all gravy now. I mean, if we lose all the rest of our games, that'll be okay because we got over that 6.5 game threshold. My expectations are high. This defense is very good. They rise to the occasion. They still give up a few too many big plays, but that's going to happen when you have a defense that, if I were to describe Beeflo's defense, I would say it's aggressive without being reckless. You like that?
I think he likes to fight fire with fire, too.
And he likes to fight fire with fire is what he likes to do. So, that being said, if you're asking me, am I getting ready to plop my lawn chair down on Hennepin and Washington for the Super Bowl big game parade route? No. I mean, I still think we need to see more of a complete game. You got to, what the coaches like to say, we got to clean things up. And I think they have to clean some things up, but
I would also take, and here comes the PA Versage version of this. There's nothing, I don't think they're surefire big game contenders right now. But I'd also say in a playoff game against any of these teams in the NFC, we can win them, right? I wouldn't go into them and go, hey, we can't win this game.
No, you're right.
That team's too much. They got too much for us.
You are exactly right. We lost to Detroit by 2. That was here, but that was Lions had to drive late too. I mean, after the pace scoop and score, it looked like that game was lock, stock, and barrel. It was ours. The San Francisco and Houston, especially the San Francisco one's not looking as good as it was, right? The San Francisco's not any good.
Well, at least they were healthier then.
They were healthier then, but it's still not looking like it was that great of a win as it once did. Even the Texans game, now they're still good.
They routed both those. I know San Francisco came back in the second half, though, but they dominated those.
But the Texans win is still big, but it's not, they don't look like big game contenders to me right now. Those stranger things can happen. And obviously the Jets game, we thought, well, the Jets are going to be really good. They're just an awful football team. But you're right, for the most part, we've played teams tough. And we discussed this last week as well. It's the reason I think, obviously, fantasy football is one of the biggest reasons football is as popular as it is. And I think people just like the game, the drama, the week-to-week changes that happens, the highs and lows, the ups and downs of teams, and the parity in the league allows most cities to feel like our team's got a chance. But when you're in a one-and-done situation, like in the NCAA tournament and in the National Football League playoffs, it's a beautiful thing, to me. It's because, as we've talked about in baseball, especially, I think, in hockey and basketball, usually the better team wins on a 4 out of 7. Usually, not always. We've seen the upsets where 8 beats 1 and et cetera. But in football, man, you just need one win, and that's it. It changes everything. Is KOC at 1 o'clock?
Yes, he will be.
Okay, so we're expecting
him on the other side.
We might. I'll start heating up my lunch. I'm having leftover lasagna today. So I'm going to start heating that up.
We can do 5 questions while we're tap dancing.
Yes, exactly. That's
because we will have to tap dance. You know how it goes.
Yes, so that's what we'll do. So we'll do all of that next. But the head coach coming up here in just a couple of minutes. His day after the game news conference, right here on your audio home, the Minnesota Vikings. We are KFAN.